Hello there, welcome back to Jennie Designs with Paper. Thank you so much for stopping by. I have an art journal page for you, so get comfy and let's get crafty. This is the Mission Inspiration March 2023 prompt card. There are 5 words for inspiration and 8 steps for adding pieces to the art journal page, and I kind of sort of did them in order mostly. So I have gone ahead and printed out the prompt card, and the first step is to glue map paper fragments to your page. I have a page that is 5.5 by 8.5. This is the mixed media paper that I usually use, and I have a map. But before I put this map pattern paper down on my art journal page, I want to adhere this kind of logbook or ledger paper onto my background. I am going to be using some matte gel medium. I'm almost emptied out this entire jar. This is the longest existing gel medium product in my craft room, and I want to finish it up while it is still usable. I am just putting a layer of gel medium over the entirety of my art journal page, and then I'm going to go ahead and use my hands to smooth that paper out. Once I flip it over, I can see that if my edges need more adhesive, which they almost always do, right? The corners and the edges almost always need more glue to keep them stuck down. Once I have all of the edges stuck down, I can go ahead and heat set the gel medium so that it is dry enough to trim the paper off with my scissors. I'm using my long Tim Holtz shears. These are the super long ones and with the comfy handles, and I love them. I didn't want to pull out my paper trimmer because the paper's not on straight, and that's just a pain. So I'm just using my scissors, and I'm cutting right along the edge of my white mixed media paper, because then I don't have to worry about, the paper trimmer. Once I have this trimmed off, I do need to start figuring out how I'm going to put the map on. Now, I will admit that when I get done, the map is more of a suggestion and an afterthought than a major part of my art journal page, but that's okay. It's totally fine. Okay, so here is my art journal page, and here is my map pattern paper. Now, both of these are old Stampin' Up! Pattern papers. I'm trying to use this stuff in my craft room, but I'm so easily tempted by other pretty papers. I only want to use this, the continent part of this map. So to make it easier to tear, I'm just trimming out the parts I want to use. And then I'm going to go ahead and tear around that same basic shape so that there is a torn edge look, or whatever you want to call it, to my paper. Now, also that part doesn't even end up really being noticeable either, but it's okay because this is just texture for the background. This is just a layer to create interest, and it totally does the job. Also, when I adhere these, I am not adhering them really necessarily very straight. This is a replica, and I'm using that term very loosely, of an ancient map of the Americas. I don't think it's actually a replica of a map. It's maybe like a drawing of an old an old map, because it doesn't line up very well. But anyway, that's okay. I'm using my gel medium to go ahead and put a layer underneath and over the top of my map fragment, and then I'm going to use my heat tool and heat set that, get that nice and dry. Pulling up my prompt card. So the next step is to add white paint or gesso with your fingers. Now, I've kind of sort of pulled in that word letter already because my ledger paper has letters on it. That's, kind of where I'm leaning today on my art journal page. Now, I didn't want to push that ledger paper all the way into the background. I just wanted to kind of sort of push it into the background. So I used gesso, because even though gesso looks very opaque right here, once it dries, it becomes a little bit more translucent, a little bit more see-through. So I'm just kind of going around the edges, It kind of makes a frame or a border, and it works. It kind of fades out the edges, and I like it. I like how it turned out. And I contemplated adding more. I always contemplate adding more, right? Sorry, my allergies have got me all stuffed up and gross, and I probably sound ridiculous. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and heat set that gesso and then pull my prompt card back in. And step number 3 is to add color through a stencil. So the stencil I've chosen is a Tim Holtz Clocks stencil, and I've pulled out the Cobalt Archival ink. And I'm going to add just this blue archival ink just in 2 corners, the top right and the bottom left. And again, I wanted to do all of the things on all of the page, right? I wanted to make it go everywhere, but I needed to rein it in. So once I had it in the top right and the bottom left, I then contemplated doing the other corner, kind of going with the rule of 3s and a triangle. But then I knew that if I put it in the bottom right-hand corner, I'd want to put it in the top left-hand corner, and then it would just be weird. So I finally convinced myself to leave it alone. And the next step is to make line marks with a straight edge. So I have an old Amazon gift card that I use for my straight edge paint marking, and I have pulled out the chipped sapphire distressed paint. And I'm going to put a little dollop of this right on my work surface, and then I'm going to drag that gift card through it to get paint on the whole length of the card, the long edge of the card. And I didn't know where to put this. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. So I went 2 lines on the right, 2 lines on the left, and decided, okay, that's probably good enough, right? I almost stopped at 3. I kept going for more. See, I think this is the page of wanting to do all the things, all the places. I did decide to go ahead and do a couple of horizontal lines as well, just to kind of break it up a little bit. I don't know. I've said this before. I have a hard time with abstract. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and heat set that paint so that it can dry quickly. And the next step is to add a handwritten quote or phrase. And then the step after that is to add 1 or 2 focal images. And I'm going to put those 2 steps together. So my focal images are these miniature versions of an old letter and an envelope. And I've printed them small, and the letters will actually fit inside that little envelope I made. And the first thing I want to do is kind of age this envelope. So I have my potting soil, archival ink, and a sponge, a foam blending tool. There we go. Foam blending tool. I can't even think of words, let alone say them today. And I'm just going around the edges of the envelope. I'm also going around the edges of the letters because they're printed on white paper. One thing about the papers is I have folded them where on the image they were folded, just in case I wanted to fold them on my art journal page. And because I might want to fold them, I am putting some ink on the back of the bottom half of the paper so that if they're folded, it doesn't look like white paper. That's, just the normal thing to do, I guess, if you're trying to go for authenticity. All right, so now I have to figure out, well, actually, sorry, I'm not quite there yet. I am going to make this envelope look a little bit more authentic if you want. I have this postage stamp, the post office postage stamp. That's a lot of words that don't normally go together, but normally go together. I'm going to go ahead and ink that up in that blue archival ink and add the postage mark onto on the envelope where it would go. And then the step said to add a handwritten quote or phrase. I hate my handwriting. I overthink it. So I used a handwriting font and I printed out this quote. And this quote says, "Letter writing is the only device for combining solitude with good company, and it is attributed to Lord Byron." So I am ink blending the little strips of my quote there. And my idea here is to add my quote to the front of this envelope like the address. See, I thought that was clever. I don't know. I thought it was clever. All in all, I probably should not have printed it. I probably should have written it because it does look a little bit weird having the strips of paper on there. But I decided not to worry about how straight they were. I'm just going to go with it. It's an old envelope. Things are not going to be perfect, right? And like Mike has continued to say this year, we are not striving for perfection. So I added that quote. You see my quote marks there, handwritten quote, onto my focal image. And now it's time to put my focal image together and add it to my art journal page. Now I sized the letter so that it fits inside the envelope. Like I can fold it in half, how it looked like it was folded in the image. But I didn't really want to do that. I think what I want to do is have the papers, the letter, hanging out the envelope with the envelope flap open. I did contemplate tucking the envelope flap down and but that looked a little bit too posed, a little bit less like you might find it somewhere. You know what I mean? I don't know. So what I decided to do was to have the letters opened up, poking out of the top of the envelope, and I edited out a lot of that fussing around. Yeah, you didn't need to see that. The front of my envelope is still a little bit wet from that gel medium, so I'm going to heat set that really quick because I want to flip it over. And I'm going to use my gel medium to just gently adhere these letter pages to the inside of that envelope. So these letter pages are just an old, it's actually pages from a poetry book that I found online, but they look like they're handwritten. So I thought I could pass them off as like love letters or something. I decided to adhere this with liquid glue instead of gel medium because I don't think the gel medium would hold that many layers down. And also, I don't care if the edges don't stay. In fact, I'm going to make a couple of the edges twirl around and stick up off the page anyway. I did go back and forth with putting the envelope on straight or tilted, kitty wampus. And I ended up with something that's not quite straight, not quite crooked. I guess it has to be crooked if it's not quite straight. I'm just holding that on for a minute while the glue catches. It is getting to be past my bedtime for this voiceover, and I'm getting a little bit punch drunk, I will admit it. Okay, so on the images of this poetry book page, it does look as though that top right-hand corners in the photograph, they look like they're twirled in and bent, like creased or whatever. So I grabbed my reverse clamp tweezers and I twisted that up a little bit, and then I pulled my blending foam. Oh my heavens, why can I not remember that word? My blending foam back out and put some of that archival ink on the back of that white cardstock or it's not cardstock, it's a heavy, I guess technically it is a cardstock. It's like a lightweight cardstock. Okay, so on our list of things to do, we are down to I'm going through and checking everything off. I've got the paper fragments, I've got the white gesso, I've got the color through a stencil, I've got the straight lines, I've got the handwritten quote, again with my air quotes, and the focal image on my page. So the next step is to draw circles or dots. And my postage mark is a circle, and I contemplated leaving that, but I didn't. I pulled out my Derwent Ink Tense pencil. This is dark indigo, and I'm just going to add a couple of groups of dots. I don't want them to look like they're important. I just want them to be circles on the page, right? And I contemplated leaving that 3, but then that looks kind of weird. So I added a couple more over here on the right, and that felt good. But then I kind of that triangle thing. Let's add a couple more down here. So I added 3 more down here. And then I stopped because I liked it. And then the last step is to add some outlines or shadows. So I pulled out the willow colored ink tense pencil, and I'm just laying down some of the pigment and activating it with my water brush. These pencils are permanent when they're dry, as long as you have activated all of the pigment with your water. I'm going around the envelope, I'm going around the letters, I'm going around where the flap of the envelope goes over the top of the letters, and I'm just casting a drop shadow, basically, I'm putting it on all the sides. It's not heavier on one side or the other, so it really does look like the sun is behind you and it's casting a drop shadow on that image. And I like that. And I did smear blue paint across my letters, and I didn't realize it because it was on the back of my pinky and I didn't see it. So, but okay, I'm going to ignore it and pretend it's not there and not hate it. All right, so obviously I can't even think of the word. The word on the right, the suggestion, the inspiration, there we go. Inspiration word I chose was letter. And I'm an avid card maker. I love sending cards. So I love the idea of letter writing and snail mail, even though postage is kind of getting up there these days. But anyway, here is my art journal page. I hope you enjoyed this journey with me, or going on this journey with me. Wow. I'm going to go ahead and sign and date the side of my page there. And I chose to do it there along that, the line marking, because it kind of just felt like that's where it should be. I'm going to adhere the prompt card to the back of my art journal page. And that just reminds me at a later date why I did why I made this art journal page the way I made this art journal page. Oh my goodness, my brain is ready to be done for the day. And yay for us, our spring break starts, well, it started when my kids got home from school today. So we didn't use all our snow days, so they gave us an extra day for spring break. So yay, I'm so excited. No alarm clocks in the morning. All right, this is my finished and completed page. I'm going to zoom in on the quote so you can check that out for just a minute. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. I have a couple of other videos here I think you might like as well. I've also added a subscribe button. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, I would love it if you did. Give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below. Tell me whether or not you send things in the mail. And have a really great day.